All right, guys, Ep.8, and I have Christian and Will with me today. I sound a little bit like I don't know, a TV presenter or something, but yeah, yeah. Tell me more about yourself. I mean, I know you guys. Like the other guests that actually came, I didn't know absolutely nothing, most of them. But for you guys, I know. But tell the audience about yourself.
Who should start?
You're already having it.
Okay, then I'm gonna start, and I try to make it short and sweet. So, yeah, where did my journey start? Actually, in 2007 in Berlin, during the first startup craze, or like the second one, if you count the .com as well. And back then I was like 15, 16 years old, and I started working for a startup, and I got like more responsibilities and tasks assigned, like, hey, build a backend system, build a payment system, and things like that. And I was always like, oh, this is so cool, because I always wanted to build things. But you know, when you're at home and you're in your sweet little bedroom for yourself, which is like 10 square meters, and you're nerding on something, you're not gonna get that far. But back then, being in Berlin was like a perfect opportunity to grow. So starting from there, I also met like 2 years later Will, and then we also like a year ago, on top of that, we started building our own venture, and we tried to do things together. And yeah, this has been the start of our journey. And maybe I should give it to Will, and he's gonna tell us a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, Will has a birthday today, right now, currently. Happy birthday! Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it was just, I was working just half a day, which feels like a vacation for an entrepreneur. Yeah, I discovered entrepreneurship very, very early. And when we met, we both had some entrepreneurial experience, some companies, and then we put our different capabilities together. And since then, it feels like a marriage. Business partnership is like a marriage.
Yeah.
Because you are going through highs and lows, and only through the lows you understand how good you are fitting together. I think not many people are made for entrepreneurship or can cope with this uncertainty. And then at some point, many years, like 5 years ago, we moved to Bulgaria because we were annoyed of all this bureaucracy in Germany. And then I discovered some other hobbies like improv theater. And now, since over a year, I'm doing a podcast myself, which is a lot of fun. And we are helping startups, especially software startups, with their business, with marketing and technology.
And speaking of like the podcast, yesterday you were hosting this entrepreneurs dinner. Like, tell me more about it. Like, it was really fun, by the way.
Yeah, I have been thinking about it for a while, and I was always afraid of the extra effort. Yeah. But then I said, okay, you know what? It's not all about business and all about earning money. It's also about socializing and creating. If there is nothing available that exists at the moment, why not to create it yourself? And the goal is just to have just a gathering, hanging out without any pressure, eating something for dinner and talking, because you learn so much from other people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yesterday I had the chance to speak with Taha for like an hour about his app that he's building, and we talked about my startup and stuff. So I think that's really valuable to have this sort of community, and not just only to be in a work environment and be like having this small talk, but really just enjoying yourself and going to such events. And tell me more about the podcast. What is it about? I think I've watched one episode from it.
We are interviewing some startup founders, sometimes some specialists. Mm-hmm. And the overall goal is to give them the knowledge to the audience, to other SaaS founders or other types of founders, that we wished someone gave it to us when we started our business. Mm-hmm. So between 2010 and 2015, we had our own software startup.
Yeah.
It was a wild ride. And then looking back, we realized how many things we could have done better. And those small things, they become a big thing after a while, and they can make a huge difference between success and failure. And by interviewing real startup founders who are really in the trenches, not just, I want to create a startup, or the opposite of that, like on the other scale, someone who has been very successful already, and the advice is usually not that relatable to normal average founders. And we have exactly like the whole band wide.
And like when you're comparing creating startups, let's say in Bulgaria or in Germany, does it matter where you are, or is it easier at one place or at another? Like, how do you see the whole thing between ecosystems?
Maybe I can add something to that, because I made a first-hand experience moving to Berlin back then. It is quite important to be within a certain circle, because the chances that you're walking, you go to a grocery store and suddenly you run into, like it happened in Berlin so many times, into another founders, or even like VCs, or like someone who is quite important for your industry. And so something like this happens by a chance, by just walking around and suddenly, hey, I remember you're this guy, and maybe you strike a conversation in this moment. So I would argue it's quite important. But back then, 2007 was also a quite different time, because these days we can use the internet to connect with each other. So back then, LinkedIn was just already started for a couple of years, but it wasn't that present in Germany, for instance. So things were different. So these days, still important to pick a good location, which is fitting you, because like different cities might have different orientation. For instance, we learned that some cities, because they're also like the government is helping companies with subsidies, there might be a different ecosystem. For instance, Germany is always big on engineering and high tech. So different cities, we've been to Warsaw 2 or 3 years ago. They were big, having already like this AI orientation, which was really big already at the time. So I would say it's still important to choose a good location. So maybe not running like behind everything. Like there's so many people talking about Dubai, but then if you really think about it, do I really need to go to Dubai? Am I already ready? Is this actually my target audience I want to converse with, like network with, or is it just like everyone is talking about because everyone is apparently rich? So you really have to think about what you want to do, and then also like it comes down to capabilities. I mean, if you already live in a big city, try to look for like communities who are already into the entrepreneur ecosystem, and reach out to them and see how far you can get. And then you can still decide like, okay, maybe there's some really interesting like convention happening in a different city, in a different country, and then you can save up some money and go there. But then you will be more clever about it, like making a list, like what do you want to achieve, to what people do you want to talk. But so long story short, I think it's still important to choose the city where you want to start, but it's not as important as it used to be, because there are so many ways to connect with people.
Do you think there's like an important factor that people are missing in? Because let's say you go every day here to like run in the park, enjoy nature. Do you think there's also this psychological, mental and health factor that people are not considering when choosing their cities? Because in Sofia, you have like a lot of nature, mountains, like psychologically you can relax, you can, what do you think about this?
Absolutely. I mean, it brings me back to the whole Dubai thing, where people told me who used to live there.
It's like 40 degrees Celsius. Like you can't do really anything outdoors.
Yeah, exactly. You cannot do anything outdoors. You have to go to a gym with an AC. But then on the other hand, there's like everything is a service. So if you need something, you go on an app and order stuff, and it arrives the next day. But I would say it's also super important for your mental health to have like some being not trapped in a city. Yeah. Because especially American cities where you have to have a car, and you don't have a car, you just move there, you will be like pretty much strapped wherever you live. Yeah. So I would argue it's super important also to I really love Sofia, obviously. So otherwise I wouldn't be here. So that's a good mix of like a vibrant city, but still you can go out in the nature and you can hide away for a while. So I would say it's super important, and you have really to think about it, unless you decide and you're really absolutely sure about hiding away for like a year and being locked in, but then why do we want to live in the city?
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna burn out eventually if you
Absolutely.
go like to Dubai or something like that. Like you're literally gonna burn out. So, and you were talking about that. Let's say some ecosystems in cities like give away subsidies, financing. I always ask this question: what's your philosophy on getting your startup financed? Like, do you think it's worth to give away equity and control?
This is a really, really, really complicated topic because what are you trading away, right? So, and what is actually the company you're building? Like, there's so many different business models. I think Will is really equipped to talk about business models, and then I can pick up the pace again with financing. So maybe Will.
I think it can be pretty stressful if you are building a startup that can only survive with founders, with investors' money. You are always hoping that you can get enough money to to extend your business for 6 more years. And if you don't, the less you have, the more difficult it is to get investors, and the more equity you have to give for a small percentage. In my opinion, it's a good idea to try to get some business angels. There are also accelerator programs in some countries. It's not so much just about the money, but about the knowledge and network, because you can skip so many mistakes. But in the same time, I would still build the project. Many projects you can build with quite little effort, and do it on the side ideally if you don't have some savings, because there is so much pressure, there is so much uncertainty in startups, and if you have the money pressure to earn enough money, and you don't know how long you actually need until you will start earning money, because as a first-time founder, you don't know so many problems that will come to you. Yeah. And that's why it's better, in my opinion, to have as little cost as possible in the beginning. And I wouldn't recommend, if you live in Sofia or you have parents in Sofia, I wouldn't recommend to go to best place in Europe, Amsterdam, London, Berlin, and pay a lot of money for rent, for living costs, and hoping for the best, and you only have a small window of opportunity. Yeah. Instead, you have more time to really learn. And I think that's another thing, in my opinion. People expect to become rich with their first startup, and it rarely happens. Yeah. It's like you build one startup, you make all the mistakes, and the next startup you realize, okay, this time I'm starting from really a good basis. I will avoid all those mistakes, and suddenly it's starting clicking.
Yeah. I really liked, by the way, when we talked yesterday with Taha, I was like, okay, what's your point with this startup? And he was like, I'm doing it for the journey. I think that's the most important thing with startups, is that you're doing it literally for, just the experience. And I think it's a mistake to go like, oh, I'm going to get rich with it. I mean, it's not bad, but I think it's more like the lifestyle, the experience, the people. So I think that's the right approach. And what do you think?
I think also the experience, real experience as entrepreneur starts only when you launch the product. Yeah. So if you take your time for 2 years to create some kind of product in your basement, you haven't gotten any experience yet. That's the sad part. So try to launch as soon as possible. Try to interact with the clients, prospects as soon as possible. That's where you learn.
Yeah. And talking about this sort of mindset of being entrepreneurial and stuff, where have you gained your motivation? Like some podcast, movie, or book or something? Is there something that clicked with you like years before? Or do you have something currently that you're reading or watching that keeps you motivated?
For me, it's very easy to get motivated. As soon as I watch some movies where people go from nothing to success, and I have to be careful not to watch such movies on weekends. Otherwise, at Sunday evening, I have this idea I want to implement that. Yeah, in the mornings, for example, I like to listen to Alex Harmosi. Sometimes it's annoying because he's telling you hustle, hustle. But sometimes in the morning when you're tired, it's has quite some motivation for me. But I cannot watch him or such similar people on the evenings because otherwise I wouldn't relax.
Yeah. I watch them, by the way, when I eat something usually.
Yeah, nice. I think the main motivation is coming from, like you mentioned, Tora, about his journey. It is the journey. I mean, this is what I enjoy the most, like building something and enjoying the process instead of focusing on like the core result, where some people define like the result being getting rich by their first startup, which never happens. Maybe once in a million. But it's more about like, okay, I want to get up. I want to work with those people we're working with, because this is like quite interestingly, the most fun times for me are always the most stressful, where we're working on a common goal and we have like some pressure from outside, like customers complaining or like market has been changing, and then you're having a team, and then you're like, oh, today we need to work on this, and how can we get this going, and see like if you especially work with people in a team, in a small team, it is cool because everyone pulls in the right direction at the same time, and everyone is kind of motivating the other person. So this is where I draw my energy from. And then sometimes when I have down phases where there's nothing much going on, then I'm also checking out like what are the sorry for the word, idiots speaking on LinkedIn. And then I'm also like, oh, okay, this is like, okay, I'm getting motivated by proving them different. Like, you're wrong, guys. It's not about this and that. I will show you. So there are different sources of motivation for me, but it's rarely an end goal. It's always like a process and journey for me.
Yeah. And if because this podcast is for people who sometimes haven't heard about people who haven't heard about entrepreneurship. If I'm a young person who has just graduated and I'm wondering between the corporate world, the public sector, entrepreneurship, what would you say to him to motivate him to go into like startups, entrepreneurship, and all of that? Like, what would you say? Like, hey man, don't do those, do this.
Ooh, so I think one thing I would tell people is not to go all in, and be crazy about things. Take it a little bit more safe, I would say. Like, go find a good job, good, well-paying job, because you're gonna need money for your startup. It doesn't matter if you spend 90 hours a day, But if you work 16 hours a day and you're putting in your effort in the product and building something and learning something, like Will already said, you're gonna make mistakes. You still have to pay for marketing and stuff like that, or whatever your product is. You need to source something. So you need to have money. And so take it slow, get a job, and then spend 2-3 hours a day instead of watching YouTube or Netflix. Go work on the product. Go think about to what people I want to speak about certain things, because again, it's also about having the right connections. And I think this is really important for the most people. Like, don't go crazy, don't be all in, don't go YOLO and see what's gonna happen. Be more considerate about it.
I totally agree with Chris. We've done it. We know how painful it is when you are struggling with finances, when you have to do everything yourself. Yeah. And if you have the dream like we did to be an entrepreneur, just think of the right direction that you want to go in your work, in your career. For example, you can go to an agency and you get so much exposure, so much experience with this kind of projects. And then you also get a network. You get maybe even the first few clients from that. And what is even more important, you get ideas. When you are in front of a trend, in the beginning you don't know much, but then you specialize in certain areas, and then you understand some needs. For example, if you are in marketing agency, you realize, okay, there could be a tool perfect for certain type of marketing, and then you are so much better equipped for a successful startup.
All right. And actually, one last question, which was supposed to be maybe the first one, but what are you currently working on? Like, is there some exciting startup you want to share, or?
I'm focusing on the podcast, and based on that, we are going to build soon a course for especially SaaS founders, how to promote the product, which is also another thing. You are either a technical person and struggle to promote it, or vice versa. You don't have anything great to promote, but you're trying to promote it. So both ways are not good. So it's good to, and the problem is people don't know what they don't know. And with this step-by-step instruction, and oftentimes they cannot afford a professional big agency. And we enable them with this course and with the podcast together, enable them to increase the chances of success.
Nice.
Yeah, so to chime in with that.
Just a second. Is it in German or in English?
No, in English.
Okay.
All English. So we are mainly focusing on software as a service companies and startups. So right now I'm mainly also consulting one software as a service company within the iGaming industry, which is quite interesting because it's like highly regulated. So you have to be careful what you're building and what you're doing and how you do things. But at the same time, it's interesting to see the journey, which is really nice to work hands-on that. But at the same time, we are generating content for like what Will already mentioned, the course we're going to bring out. So I'm bringing in the technical content like, okay, guys, you want to build a software as a service company. These are the things we need to set up. These are the things you should avoid doing in the beginning. So this is going to be an interesting match from the marketing point of view and also the technical point of view. And like Will already said, we are still gathering like hands-on experience. So we are still working, and I'm working with one client hands-on building things so that they are building a proper software as a service company that scales and works, hopefully to an order of magnitude or 2 orders of magnitude better.
Wow. Well, really cool. I really wish you luck, and I cannot wait to see this course. Maybe I can enroll in it. I don't know. And thank you for joining us. Actually, this is maybe my longest interview I've had for the podcast, so this is cool. I'm making it a little bit more, improvised, let's say.
Cool. So, thanks for having us. It was a pleasure talking about whatever we can come up with. Like you said,
about everything. We're talking about everything. Yeah.
I'm pretty confident we could go down like 2 hours.
That's what I was also thinking. I'm like, okay, we can have this conversation for like 2 hours.
Maybe we should.
But I should keep it a little bit, short. So people actually listen to what we're saying.
Maybe we should spin off that conversation in our podcast where we have all the time of the world.
That's okay.
Thank you very much. I hope we gave some value to some of the audiences. I think entrepreneurship is cool. We have been doing it for so long that it seems sometimes we are a bit negative. We've seen all the mistakes, not all, but many mistakes, and we've seen many tears, kind of. But in the end of the day, it's if you do it like with the right mindset, as an exploration, not as the shortest way to get rich, then you can have a lot of fun.
Really wise words. All right, guys, see you in the next episode.